Hey everyone, it's Daphne from Scrap and Create, and we're on to page 3 for Safari Adventure, and this is something I've not done before. I have seen it done before, and I've seen the finished project, and I kind of reverse engineered what I think they did. I'm not completely sure, but this worked out for me, and I think it'll work out for you. So I just want to remind you that everything is being placed on top of one of the 4 pocket pages that go in the album. There was a little confusion. I answered a couple of questions on this, but basically the tutorial shows you how to make the base album and install the pocket pages. But what you want to do is make it up to, but don't install the pocket pages, decorate them, and then do the installation. But the way I had done the tutorial, I went ahead and showed you how to add them to the book. But if you look at the cut list, it says wait and don't install them just yet. You can do it either way. I used to install them and then decorate the pages, but I think it's a little bit easier this way because it's flat and it's certainly a lot less wear and tear on your cover. Okay, that's my little informational break there. So I'm making sure that my pocket and my spine sides are to the left and right. So this is up and this is down. And then I've got a piece of cardstock that I've trimmed out to 8 by 8. So basically it's going to fit exactly on top of your pocket page. And then I scored it at 4, which is in half. And then I just put a little tick mark, a 1/2 inch from the bottom, the top and the bottom. And I used my ruler to cut the thinnest slice I could get out of this paper. So I wind up with this little seam inside. So again, it's 8 by 8, score at 4, fold it in half, and then put a ruler on the edge. And then I used a straight edge or a X-Acto knife or a box cutter to trim off, starting from about 1/2 inch from the top and stopping at a 1/2 inch from the bottom. So that is how I got this little split. And I'm going to raise it up, but it is, like I said, I pretty much put the ruler as close, let me use some white paper, as close to the edge of this score line as I could, and just took a small sliver out, and this is what I wound up with. So you're going to need this seam in here. Now the other way to do it is to do two panels and make each panel just under 4 inches, and then you'll have a slight gap between the 2 panels. But you do need a stop on either edge to keep the slide mechanism, which is this, from sliding right out. And then it won't work for what's going to happen next. So this is the base. We have a little slide mechanism that we feed through this slit, and you open it up on the back. And then this is what's going to get glued down to the pocket page, and then you have this slide. It goes up and down. And the slide is going to hold these 4 flaps in place and closed. And then when you slide it up, you can open the 2 bottom ones, and then you can slide it down. And it's hard to do this because nothing's stuck down yet. And then you can open these 2. So that is the design for page 3. Okay, so I already put my slit in, but I am going to do one with you guys right now. So let me get a piece of black cardstock, and I don't know how I got in here without my paper, but it looks, yeah, it looks pretty much like I did. So hang tight. Let me get some black cardstock. I'll be right back. Okay, I've got some of my cardstock. I'm just going to go ahead and open a brand new pack, and I just want to share this with you. People ask me about this all the time. This is the cardstock that I use. Astro Brights. It is by a company called Nina. And this is a 50 pack of cardstock. It's 65 pounds. I'm really happy with it. I think it's the right weight. It doesn't crack on me. I use it for the cover as well as the pocket pages and the flap. So everything, my book is completely made out of this, with the exception, well, sometimes I use this for the cover and sometimes I don't. And the only reason I don't is it's not easy to get in 12 by 12, which sometimes is the size I need. So here is my 8.5 by 11. So the first thing I'm going to do is trim it down to 8 by 8. Okay, so here's my 8 by 8, and the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to score it in half. And I did not bring my scoreboard in here, so I'm just going to use my ruler and my grid. And I'm not trying to be precise because I know I'm just doing this for an example. So once you have your 8x8, stick it in your scoreboard, score it 1/2 inch, or use your ruler and a grid. And I said 1/2 inch, score it at 4. So basically you are scoring this in half. Okay, so there it is, scored in half. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my pencil and I am going to come up a 1/2 inch from the bottom and just put a little tick mark, and a 1/2 inch from the top, a little tick mark, and I just know I want to cut between those two. So how you choose to do this is up to you, but this is what I did. I used my ruler and I got as close to the edge without going over the score line as I could, and then I used I want to say an X-Acto knife, but I actually use a box cutter, but an X-Acto knife to cut from here to here. Now the other thing you can do, and I don't have my box cutter in here, so I'm actually not going to cut it, but that's pretty much the process. The other thing I tried to do is I've got a trimmer where I can start. It's just a straight edge cutter, and I tried to cut this and do it that way, and it doesn't make it wide enough. So even if you try to do it that way, you are going to have to make at least 2 cuts, because you can't have just a simple sliver cut here. You have to have this gap, and this is why you need the gap, because these 2 pieces of paper are folded together and then back out, and that's wider than just a razor cut, so it has to be wider. So this is about what I've done, which is about 1/8 of an inch. You can see it actually gets a little bit smaller here because I didn't cut such a straight line. I'm actually going to go back and hand cut this a little bit wider so that the slider will slide more freely. Okay, so again, you put it through and then you open it back up. And I can tell when I'm trying to slide it down, it gets a little bit tight down here. So I'm just going to open that up just a little bit by hand with some scissors. And then we're going to go ahead and install it. I just had to make sure which side it was, this side. Okay, let's see how I did. That's a little better. My scissors are kind of dull, sorry. Okay, all right, that looked a little bit better. Yeah, it looks more even. Okay, and I would say, I'm gonna tell you how deep this is. It is about a 1/16 of an inch is how wide that gap is, and you need it to be that wide. Okay, so this was my sample. Again, you fold it in half, and you just put a little marker here so you don't go all the way to the end, and then you cut off. I wound up being a 32nd of an inch because when you open it up, then you get a 1/16 of an inch. Okay, there you go. Now that's done. So this is ready. We're ready to go ahead and add the slide. So I'm going to show you how to make the slide. And you're going to start with a 2 inches by 6 inches, and you're going to score at 1, 2, 4, and 5. Score at 1, 2, 4, and 5. Okay, so you're going to fold this over on itself so that you have this 2-inch piece right here. So you wind up with a 2-inch square. Then each one of these is going to get folded out like so. So when you're done, it looks like this. And these are the little flaps that are going to feed through the strip that we cut out of the center of the page. So this will be the top of it. So the next thing you're going to do is you're going to apply glue here, and you're going to glue these 2 pieces down. So let's do that. Before I do it, I am going to go ahead and burnish my, there we go, score lines. just so it lays a little bit flatter as I'm trying to get the glue to dry. Ooh, that felt kind of sticky. All right, so again, 2 by 6, score it 1, 2, 4, and 5. Okay, and now we're going to fold these over on itself and just hold it into place while it dries. Okay, now we're going to pick this up. Now the next thing we want to do, let's get off any excess glue here, is pinching it down to make sure it's all good. I'm going to wind up putting something decorative on this base. I just don't know what yet. Okay, so now we're going to fold this together, feed it through the slot, open it back up, and now we're going to pull in our pocket page, like so, and we are going to glue the pocket page down, and we are going to glue all the way around the edges of the pocket page. But we want to leave this open so this can slide. So we're really just going around the edges. You can do this with tape if you want to. You want to make sure you get that 1/2 inch because you really don't want to accidentally pull that down and accidentally pull your slide all the way through. Okay. Now I'm just coming in to the inside a little bit just because I want this to be very secure, because we're going to be pushing up and down on this lever or this slide, and we don't want the whole page inside to torque. But as you can see, I'm well inside where these 2 flanges are. Okay, now we're ready to go ahead and apply this to page 3. And actually my glue is drying faster than I'm working, so I'm going to add another strip of glue here. Okay, and here. All right, let's get going before it dries again. All right. So you want to be careful not to be pulling on the paper as you're applying it, because you have this slit in it. You could actually create a buckle in your paper. So almost let it fall down on itself. There we go. Okay, let's let that dry for a second. You can hear all the glue trying to grab. And then this is our slide. Okay, I'm going to put this down so you can see what I'm doing. I'm actually sliding this up and down. Okay, so that is the base of page 3. Okay, now I have another decision to make, and that is I had actually trimmed these out to be three and a half by 3.5 inch squares. So it's really 7 by 3.5. That would mean that I've got a border around each one of these when I lay it down. And when I started paper planning, I was thinking I might want to change that so that I don't necessarily have to put a background piece of paper and then also cover these. So I like the way this looks though. So I've got a little bit of paper that needs to be trimmed right there. There we go. It wasn't very clean. Okay, that's it. All right, so I think that I am going to stick with my original design. So these will be 7 by 3.5. You're going to score at 3.5. And you wind up with this little card that's 3.5 by 3.5. When you're finished, you need 4 of those. And you're going to have 2 on the top. And I've made mine, you can have them open any way you want, but I'm going to have them open away from each other like so. Like so. And I think that this, well, you can't have them open any way you want, really. The score line either has to be on the sides or the top or bottom. You can't turn it this way and have your score toward the toward the slider because it won't hold them closed, okay? So then the next thing we're gonna do is we would need to put our designer paper down, and then we'll apply these on top of the designer paper. So I'm gonna stop for a second, go get my designer paper so we can get on to the next step. So again, you'll need 4 of these 7 by 3.5, score at 3.5. You'll need a total of 4 of those. Okay, I'll be right back. Hey everyone, it's Daphne from Scrap and Crate, and we are here working on page 3 of Safari Adventure. And I've got my designer papers laid out, and this is what I've planned to do. So if you recall, this is a slide, goes up and down. There's an opening right here. So I've trimmed out 2 pieces of paper that are gonna fit side by side, like so. And this will become the background. And then on top of that, we're going to add these, and I gave you the cut measurements, but I'll go ahead and do it again in case you haven't done it ahead of time. 7 by 3.5, 7 by 3.5, and you're gonna score these in half. So you score at 3.5. You're gonna need 4 of those for page 3, and we're gonna do the same thing on page 6. And then I've cut out the designer paper that's gonna fit on top of these as well. So this is a pretty straightforward. It was a little fussy to make, but it's very easy to decorate. So it's kind of the trade-off, right? So I'm just dry fitting these really fast. Pardon me. And this looks pretty good. So as you're putting these panels down, you want to make sure I'm actually coming as close to the edge of that opening as I can without going over it, because you want your slide to move freely. So just make sure that you're not going into this gap right here. You can either be slightly off, but don't go over. And I'm sure these fit one way better than another, so that's why I'm kind of taking my time to check out how close they're coming to the edge of that gap. I don't really know what to call that. Channel, gap. I'm gonna hold these for a second and make sure my slide still works, and it does. Okay, so I'm happy with that. So we're gonna add some glue, and then we're gonna slide it under the slide. Slide it under the slide. Slip it under the slide. There we go. Okay, one more. And I just picked kind of a simple pattern to go on the back since we're gonna have 4 flaps on top of it. But it's really up to you. You could do it the other way, have a very busy pattern in the back, and then have your 4 flaps be very neutral or standard. Push down too soon. It's dried too fast on me, so get some more glue. It did not slide the way I wanted it to. Okay, all right, so now we've got these 4 cards, which are 3.5 by 3.5 cards basically. And I am making them face each other. So They're going to go like so, and then this little thing is going to hold everything in place. So what I want to do is have equal spacing. So I'm going to take a few minutes and try to figure out what that's going to look like. That was a little too high. And I'm going to decorate this, and it's likely that whatever I put on top of the slide is going to be larger than the slide itself. So it's going to cover more surface area of these 4 panels. And you'll see that when I get to it. So I'm going to use my ruler here and try to figure this out. So that's 1/4 of an inch. And that's 1/4 of an inch. And there's 1/4 inch on either side of the split. So that looks pretty good. So I think that's what I'm going to go with, is sort of this 1/4 of an inch pattern. And I'm going to, once I get the bottom one in, I'm going to guide the top one off the bottom. Okay, let's see, how does that look? Now I'm gonna trying to center it. So now I'm trying to decide, do I want to close this gap a little? So we have 1/4 inch around, and then a little bit more than 1/4 inch through the center. I'm gonna stand up and take a look at it, and I think I like it. Or I might split the difference, come up just a little bit more than 1/4 of an inch. Yeah, that's what I'm going to do. All right, I'm going to fuss with this for a minute and then get some pencil marks in so it's easier for me to... So what I did, instead of going 1/4 inch from the edge of the pocket page to the top of this, I went 1/4 inch from the designer paper down. So that's 1/8 of an inch right there. So that's another 1/4 inch when you add, or 1/8 and 1/8. Yeah, another 1/4 inch when you add both sides. Is that right? No, that's 1/16 of an inch, sorry. So when you add this black space and this black space, you get 1/8 of an inch. So I just adjusted it so that I'm measuring off the designer paper and not the edge of the pocket page. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. To everyone. Okay. So just double checking. Not enough, is it? No. I'm gonna do that again, sorry. I'm gonna pause, get my lines in and come back. Okay, everybody, so I took a break and added my lines. I know you can't see them, but I'm gonna tell you what I did. So I came in 1/4 inch from all the sides, and I just basically drew a box that's 1/4 inch smaller than the designer paper. And so I can see my lines where they're coming together here, and that's where I'm going to place these. So again, I just used my ruler and I came in 1/4 inch and drew a line around all 4 sides to come up with my guide. And now we're going to lay each one of these panels down, or cards basically is what it is. And so these lines are my reference, but I am going to use my ruler when I lay down the one side by side just to make sure they look like they're straight as well. So this is where my lines are, but before I press the whole thing into place, I'm going to put my ruler down here and make sure I've got a straight line coming across the bottom. And I do. Okay, so there's two. Now I'm going to turn the whole thing upside down and there we go. And do the top, these two. Okay. And then when I put these in, I'm also going to be looking that my line looks rather continuous, my visual line. It's one thing to put a pencil line, it's a different thing when you lay down the panel. It can look like it's off. So again, make sure that your openings are toward the center of the page. Okay, looks good. Got a little excess glue here. Okay, we're going to do that one more time. I'm being very generous on the glue here because I want to have a chance to slide it around a little to get it so that it looks, you know, good. Up and down, side to side. So it's way too far over. Start again. Wow, I don't know why that's off so far. This must not have gone in straight, so I'm going to straighten it out here. Yeah, that's much better. Yeah, this is off slightly, but I think I want the top line straight. I think that matters more. All right, this one went in a little bit cockeyed, and I can see it, but it's pretty good. Okay, now we're ready to decorate our flaps. So I've done something pretty simple on the inside. I just did these two patterns where I've got the giraffe, and then just a coordinating contrast, which is this black. So I think that's what I'm going to do here. All right, looks good. Let's get these in. And of course, you could have done this before you laid it down. Okay, when I get done with page 3, I think I'm going to take a break because I need to go find out what's going on with my dog. She's not feeling good. I just noticed that I have two of these black ones that look the same, so I'm actually going to move it adjacent so it's a little less obvious instead of just being right here. Well, I guess it's about the same. All right, now we'll keep going. This would be a good place to do like a color block of a full image too, if you know, cut it into squares. And then when you open it up, it reveals one common photo or image, I guess is what I'm thinking, image. Okay, I got a little heavy-handed on the glue there. Okay, the bottom is done. I'm going to turn everything around to bring it closer to me, and we'll keep working. This could have been the other pattern if you guys like it better. I thought it was a little too busy. Lovely. I'm really liking the way this turned out, even though it was a little fussy to put together. Okay, now let's get the top decorated. And so what I've done with the top is I chose these two birds and then coordinating. And I thought it would be simple to cover these with photos and then to leave the image of the birds as is as part of the decoration. So that's kind of where my thought process was. So I have to remember, so this is page 3. So here's page, I'm going to pull page 2 in real quick to see. So I think since I've got birds up here, I'm actually going to change this to move that bird away and put the bird down on the bottom like so, so that there's a little bit of a break in the pattern here, because this is just a repeat of the pattern. What do you think? This would be a good place to put more of that red. I think I like that. There we go. That's what I'm gonna do. I just switched them around because I like the way the birds are kind of facing each other this way, and when you do it this way, they're back to back. So that's why I switched them. And of course, it could be 4 reds or 4 birds. So these go all different directions, but I kind of wanted these two animals to be featured, the tiger and the giraffe. So that's why I chose that orientation. There we go, there's page 3, everyone. So I'm going to push the slide up. And now that I've got all these layers on, it is a little bit snug, but it does slide up and down. But not as, I wish it went a little easier than, but I do really feel like I need to use 2 hands. Of course, nothing is anchoring my page down, so it's moving around with me. If it's in a book, it's going to be a little more stationary. So here is what I'm thinking for the slide, and I haven't completely made up my mind, but I'm thinking I'm actually going to use this. But I need to make sure that when it's up, it's not blocking the lower ones. Yeah, because I'm using 2 packs of 2 DCEs, I get 2 sets of chipboard. So I think I'm actually going to use the same closure on both page 3 and page 6, even though I've got different designer paper. But I like that it's very rigid, and I think it's easy to move around. So I'm still thinking about that a little bit. I'm not going to go ahead and glue it down yet. I may come back to that. And now I'm also wishing that I would have reversed this, because then this would have been covering up the bottom of the tail and not the head of the bird. So that's something to think about when you decide where to put your papers, depending on how you decorate your slide and how big it is. So, okay, well, that's it for now. And now that I'm looking at it, it might be a bit much. I might choose something a little bit smaller. I think there is another piece of chipboard in here that I thought was a good candidate too. If I do that, I'd have to put it on top of something because it's not quite big enough. I'm missing something. I thought I had a square one, and this would be another idea too. And again, I would place it on top of something so that it covers the whole 4x4. So those are my thoughts right now, but I'm not ready to make that decision. I'm going to come back to that as part of the embellishment phase. And then once this is actually in the book and I start using it, I'm going to decide exactly how I want that to work. So this is a little bit snugger than I thought it was going to be. So it's something to think about. I might actually, whatever I do here, I might attach it so that these are actually little wings, so it'll slide easier over this. I haven't decided. What I mean by that is if I build up the center, I'll demonstrate real quick. If I put a small strip in the center and then use a piece of chipboard across the top, I can pull this up around that layer, and that'll create a little bit more freedom for this to slide up and down. So if I decide to do that, I'll go over that in detail when I build it. There's something to think about. I think it's going to work easier if I do that because of the buildup. So you've got several layers of paper. you've got the card itself and then paper on, you know, both sides, 1, 2, 3, plus the cardstock itself, 4 or 5 layers of cardstock. So I think you need a little bit more of a lift here. And I hadn't considered that when I designed the slide closure. So anyway, so that's it for page 3. Okay, when we get back together, we'll be working on page 4, and I promise I will come back and tell you what I decide to do here on that slide, and we'll build together whatever that solution is. Okay, be back soon.